So it's been a while since we've ventured back into dexterity builds, and there's no time like the present. The Claws of Night are one of the most fun weapons you can use out of the new DLC, and with their Ash of War, it makes Hemorrhage incredibly easy to build up. So we are going to be using a Dex Blood build, and it's going to be absolutely broken. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the reason that I knew this build was going to be good is because during the Mesmer fight you're seeing here on screen, it absolutely shreds. He is one of the harder bosses, yet most fun bosses in the new DLC. And with this build, you are going to absolutely tear him to pieces. The footage you're seeing right now has been recorded on New Game Plus 2, and I'm using a level 150 build with 70 dexterity. So you're going to see the build on the right side here, and I want to show you exactly what we're working with, but I'm also going to show you a few variations you can use depending on what situation you find yourself in within the game. There are a few different talismans you can use, and there are a few ways to play this build, but I've really enjoyed it so far, so let's go ahead and jump right into the weapon. The Claws of Night are going to be attained through Ymir's questline, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will show you where to start it. You have to head to this location on the map and talk to Ymir in the church, and then this entire questline will start for you, but at the end of that questline, you will receive the Claws of Night. Where these really excel is their Ash of War Scattershot Throw. Scattershot Throw is going to provide you a little bit of stance damage and allow you to build up some hemorrhage very quickly by giving you 11.2 stance damage, and it's only going to cost 11 FP. This is a very spammable attack, and if you hit bosses with every single scatter shot in the throw, you are going to be absolutely destroying them. Now, one thing to notice, even though the claws say they are slash and pierce, the Scattershot Throw Ash of War only deals slash damage instead of pierce damage, which would be incredibly overpowered if it did. However, the physical damage is going to be 182 plus 183, and you're also going to have some magic damage at 117 plus 118. We're not going to be buffing magic damage at all with this build. We are mainly relying on the high dexterity scaling as well as the blood loss buildup we're receiving. Now, when it comes to your scaling, you are going to have a soul scaling with a B in dexterity. Now, it's going to provide us 45 blood loss buildup, and its attributes required to wield are 8 strength and 20 dexterity. In my opinion, this is one of the most fun claw weapons to use in the game currently. However, I did find that my mobility without a Shadow Step type Ash of War was a little bit limited, but the more that I played with this weapon, the more that I found out that the Scattershot Throw is a nice substitute for a little bit lack of mobility. And quickly, I want to point out, we are also going to be equipping a dagger here. You can equip any weapon you want, but I'm only using it for the Golden Bow Ash of War. I didn't want to put too many stats into Faith because I wanted to focus on the dexterity damage of this build, but the Golden Bow Ash of War is going to provide you with some great physical damage as well as some good damage negation. And considering we didn't have enough Faith to put the actual incantation in here, this is a nice substitute. Now, moving into our armor of the build, we are going to be using the White Mask. Considering we have bleed buildup on our weapon, anytime that bleed happens in the vicinity, you're going to get a plus 10% attack power boost when using this helmet, so it's definitely needed for this build. And then the rest is just the Rakshasa armor set, which is going to give you plus 2% damage for each piece that we're wearing. This is basically just free damage for the build. We're going to get a nice 6% damage boost when using this armor. Now, the Rakshasa armor set is going to be located in the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum, located right here on the map within the DLC. All you need to do is kill the boss that's in there, and he'll drop a weapon and this armor for you. Now, if you're looking for the White Mask, that's going to be in a separate part of the game in the Mogwin Sacred Palace. You're going to be invaded by 3 separate White Mask assassins, and the 3rd assassin will drop it for you. Now, when it comes to our talismans, like I said, there's always 1,000 different ways to make a build, but I've chosen these 4 talismans here that I feel give you a really good amount of damage for this particular setup. First off, we're using the Shard of Alexander in order to boost our Claws of Night Ash of War Scattershot Throw by 15%. We're then going to be using the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, which is also going to boost our attack power by 20% anytime blood loss is in the vicinity. And for our successive attacks, we're going to be using the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia. This is going to give you a plus 13% increase in your attack power once you start getting your successive attacks up and running with these claws. And considering the claws attack is incredibly fast, this is no problem at all. Now, our 4th talisman is a Quality of Life talisman, and that is going to be the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman. If you want to focus on pure damage, you can put the Millicent's Prosthesis here as well, or something like the Crusade Insignia, but because people hit so hard in the DLC, I feel the 20% damage negation is definitely needed, especially with most of the bosses. Now, the Shard of Alexander is going to be located in Alexander's questline, and I'll leave a video down in the description below so you guys can follow along and get that. The Lord of Blood's Exaltation is going to be found in the Lindell Catacombs dungeon located right here on the map within the capital. If you want to get the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis, then you can do Millicent's questline, and yes, I will have a video down down in the description below for you if you want to follow along with that. The Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman is going to be located in Ephriel Brace of the Halig Tree. Right before you get to Melania, there's going to be a church, and you run through the church, and on top of one of the balconies is going to be a chest with this talisman inside. Now, as far as our flask is concerned, we are using 2 tiers that synergize very well. One with our successive attacks, which is going to be the Thorny Crack tier. That's going to give us a 20% increased attack power buff after we get some successive attacks going. And then our Blood-Sucking Crack tier is going to increase our attack power by another 20%, but it is going to drain our HP, so we have something that's going to mitigate that a little bit later in the video, and we'll talk about that soon. Now, I know a lot of people do not like the health drain effect that the Blood-Sucking Crack tier has, but if you don't want to use the Blood-Sucking Crack tier, you can definitely use something like the Stamina tiers, or a Damage Negation tier will always work well in this spot. And if you did want to boost your Dexterity all the way up to 80, you could definitely use the Dexterity Knot Crystal tier here, but I don't feel it's super necessary. Now, the Thorny Crack tier is going to be located in the Consecrated Snowfields at the top right of that area after you defeat the Minor Erd tree there, and then the Blood-Sucking Crack tier is going to be found within the ruins of Unte, located right here on the map after you defeat a Furnace Golem. Now, we talked earlier about negating the effects of the Blood-Sucking Crack tier, and although we're not going to be able to negate them entirely, we can slow it down a ton. As for buffs for this build, we are going to be using Bestial Vitality to do that. Bestial Vitality is going to allow us to get 5 HP per second for 120 seconds, allowing us to heal a total of 600 HP. And the reason we're using Flame Grant Me Strength is because the Faith requirement is so low at 15 that it's almost just a free damage boost. We're going to have 20% increased damage and plus 20% fire damage, even though we don't need the fire damage, and it's also going to give us 11.1% stamina recovery speed. So for its very low cost in Faith, you might as well just use it because you get so much out of it. And lastly, we're going to look at the stats of the build. We're doing 60 Vigor because that's almost a necessity at level 150 for the DLC, or you're going to get two-shotted by everything. Mind is 18 because we don't need it a ton. Endurance is 28 because the claws take a ton of stamina to use. Strength is at 16 because we don't need it. Dexterity is at 70 because that's what our weapon is going to be scaling the most with. Intelligence and Arcane we don't need at 7 and 11. And Faith is going to be 19 to wield the incantations that we're using. And guys, there you have it. That is going to be it for our Claws of Night build. I'm incredibly excited to get into this DLC a little bit more. However, there is going to be new games coming to the channel, and I want to make you aware of it. Next game coming up is Black Myth Wukong. I'm going to start making some videos on that within this week, and some should be hitting the channel next week. So I hope you guys are ready for that. I'm very excited to get into that and maybe make a small departure away from Elden Ring, even though Elden Ring will still be a massive part of this channel. So with that being said, make sure you subscribe on your way out. I appreciate it a ton. And until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.